Hello.
Hello. Welcome to everyone who has entered. We've opened up just a little bit sooner, but we're just getting acclimated. So please feel free to just grab your last water, something to drink, and we'll be joining you shortly and starting our event. Hello, Christopher. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened there.
No problem. Hi, everybody. Yes, grab your water and
That's right.
we'll start soon.
While you're here, tell us where you are from. Welcome. Yes, Ruth, this webinar will be recorded, and it will be sent to those people that have registered once it processes. So you're in good shape there. Welcome again to everyone. We did open up a little bit earlier just to get people in the door and also to get situated. So please feel free to tell us where you're hailing from. If you do have questions that come up, feel free to use the Q&A box in order to offer the question. And if you do type something in the chat box, it may be lost, so the Q&A box is the best place to offer your questions, and we will get to those answers at the end. Once again, the Q&A box is located at the bottom, and you can put your questions in there, and Christopher will be able to answer those at the end of his presentation. A couple more minutes. Welcome from St. Maria Parish Orthodox Church, Cleveland, Tennessee. Also welcome to Holy Martyr Peter and Aleut Orthodox Church in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Welcome, Ruth and Sophie. We have 81 registered tonight. 81. So we're looking forward to seeing many of our friends, families, soon to be acquaintances join us. Thank you for those of you that are already using the Q&A. Between myself and Christopher, we'll get to those answers after the presentation. All right. We're going to give it a couple more minutes here. All right, my friends. Well, welcome to our event tonight. On behalf of St. Raphael School, we welcome you. And on behalf of Orthodox Christian College Counseling, we welcome you to our event, Navigating Middle School, High School, and Beyond. For those of you that just have come in, my name is Presbitera Maria Cuyanos. I am the principal of St. Raphael School, who is the host of this event. With me, I have Christopher Chiakulas, who is the head of Orthodox Christian College Counseling. A few housekeeping items before we officially begin. When you come in, please feel free to tell us where you're hailing from. We did do a couple shout outs there. In addition to that, if you do have a question that you would like me or Mr. Chiakulas to answer, please use the Q&A box, because in the chat box it gets a little dizzy when we're trying to look at what everybody is saying. We'll do our best there, but the Q&A box is located at the very bottom of your screen, and you can just click on that, and we promise to get to all of the information at that time. So again, we welcome you. Welcome, Christopher. I'm so glad to have you join us. Christopher has been a high school counselor since 2013, specializing in college and career counseling. In 2018, Christopher was selected as the ACT K-12 College and Career Readiness Champion for the state of Illinois. He is also currently an adjunct instructor at a community college teaching a course called College Success Seminar. His previous experiences in education include working as an academic advisor for undergrad students at a large Catholic university and as a public school business education teacher. Moreover, Christopher is founder of the Orthodox Christian College Counseling, a platform that supports Eastern Orthodox Christian teenagers and their parents in navigating the high school journey, focusing on the college search, application, and selection process from an Orthodox perspective. Christopher lives in the Chicagoland area with his wife, Jordan, who he met at the OCF College Conference. Shout out to OCF, and their 4 children. And this is the first in 2 seminars that Christopher is going to offer. This one is specifically for parents, and the second one will be geared toward families. So for students and parents alike. So welcome again. I am so glad you are here. Another shout out, we have another church in Glendale, Washington. Lots of Glendale, Washington students in our SRS program. Welcome, St. Joachim and Anna Orthodox Church. So at this time, I'm going to pass it over to you, Christopher, and welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Presbytera, for having me, and for everyone at St. Raphael. I really am excited, and it's a blessing for sure to be here. Really quick housekeeping, Presbytera, can you see if I can share? It says sharing not turned on, so.
That's unusual, as I usually do have that turned on. Hold on. Share. Let's see here. There we go. Did that work?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Yay.
All right.
All right, we're all set.
All right. So thank you again, and thank you everyone out there for joining this evening. I know there's a lot going on, and to try to get a few minutes away from your kids and your family responsibilities. I know it's a lot to ask. So again, thank you all for coming. I hope my kids have heeded my ask to be quiet during this so that we don't get interrupted, and we'll see how that goes. So yes, Benedetta did a great job with the introduction, and so I don't want to belabor that too long, but I do want to just kind of start and tell you a little bit, addition about myself that she didn't, mention, and kind of basically how we got to this point, and how I came to start this Orthodox Christian College counseling. So yes, over the last 20 years, I've done a lot of things in education, most of it related to that post-secondary counseling. I currently work at a pretty large suburban high school in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. We just won the National Blue Ribbon Award of Excellence from the U.S. Department of Ed, so that was exciting. And even in my previous school, I actually was the college and career counselor for grades 6 through 12. So sometimes folks will ask, is it too early to start talking about college? And yes and no, and we'll kind of talk about some of those things today. I'm on a few different advisory boards as well, just so you all know that I'm kind of invested in this field. It's something that I do in a lot of different ways. Um, and so I thought after 20 years or so of being in this field and learning a lot, I had a lot of the practical and logistical aspects down, the knowledge down to really expand outside my school and my day job and share that with others. But I didn't want to just share it in general. I really felt strongly that the Orthodox faith could be incorporated in this whole process. And so while it may be kind of a niche group of Orthodox Christian folks looking for a real specific college counseling, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go for it, and have been kind of uh, working on this platform for the last year or so, having presented at a few schools and doing some things in that sense. So that's kind of where I came into this, and so I hope to share tonight a lot of that practical knowledge infused with the Orthodox faith, like we said. A disclaimer, two things that are not on this resume here. One is that I am not a parenting expert, so a la Dr. Philip Mamalakis or somebody like that. And so I'm not going to ever tell you how to parent or anything like that. I just can share some my own personal parenting. As you can see, I have four kids, 14 and under. As well as different things I've seen from the parents that I've worked with over the years. And I also, as you see, also not see on here is any kind of theology degree or anything like that. So I'm just going by what I've learned growing up, my whole life. And I don't think we're going to get too deep where anyone's going to, challenge that. But I just like to say that in all senses, when you're, working with your children or they're making these big life decisions, to always consult your spiritual father when it comes to those important matters of faith, and don't use me as like the theological expert. But I think what I've got here, and you'll see, makes sense as I merge those two together. So I just like to kind of say those things. And yes, we didn't. My wife, I grew up Greek Orthodox. My wife grew up Antiochian in the Antiochian Church. We met at the OCF College Conference. I'll be sharing some things about OCF today, even more so at that next event. And so definitely stay tuned. One of the great resources to get connected with for sure. All right, so tonight I hope to share with you all that mix of logistics and through an Orthodox perspective, some areas of focus for your students during these times, how they can stay spiritually and physically healthy, some tips for academic success that may not be anything new that you haven't heard at the schools your kids go to, but just some reminders, hopefully. Some college and career planning overview. And again, that session in January will focus really more for those high schoolers doing the college search process. And then that's part of looking ahead as well. I was going to say something else, and it already has slipped my mind. So I will move on. I love this quote, and what I just remember what I was going to say was that I know there may be a lot of you joining from with your children in different educational settings. So many of you probably attend St. Raphael online there. Many of you maybe homeschool. Maybe some of your children go to public school. And so I do want to try throughout this talk tonight to make sure that it's relevant to anyone who's joining. And so if not, definitely, put that in the questions and we can try to make sure that we answer it specific to that. But no matter what, and why I love this quote right here from St. Macarius the Great, believe me, if you knew who is with you, you would not fear anything the world has to offer. So it's a stressful time as a parent with kids these age, where to send them to school. Should I homeschool? Should I, go to Orthodox school only? Should I send them to a public school? So many factors. And even if that's an easier decision, the college piece can be even more worrisome because there aren't as many Orthodox schools by far, and it's quite, trickier in that sense. And so I like to try to remind myself this quote that if you remember that the Lord is with you and with your children, maybe you can tweak this quote that says, if you knew who is with your children, you would have, nothing to fear. Of course, we want to be vigilant. Of course, we want to, make sure that we are being diligent with what our students are doing, our kids are doing. But I just like to have this reminder of that the Lord is with us, and if we put the Lord first and foremost in all of these educational decisions, for sure, that He will guide us along that right path. So I just really love that quote. All right, so what should your students focus on during these different levels? So again, these are probably pretty practical things. You probably have heard this before. Maybe your school is even sharing additional things, but these are things that I like to kind of think are important or really set the foundation for future, academic success. So in grades 6 through 8, definitely developing those good work habits, those study habits, those homework habits. I know my eighth grader is constantly distracted by his homework on his laptop, and trying to make sure that he's staying focused. And so, just setting that standard from now, that will benefit down the road when there's more difficult work or things like that. Having those students in middle school start taking more of the responsibility for their education. And that could be something as simple as you have a question, you email the teacher. You have an email address possibly, or if you're taking an online course, I'm sure there's an online messaging system, right? You send those emails, and start that responsibility from now. And this is a great time to try different extracurricular sports and clubs. And we'll talk about the balance between that and our faith here in a second. But a lot of this time is kind of figuring out where their interest is. Where does their interest lie? Where do their skill sets lie? Where do their abilities lie? And how might that translate to things that do in high school and even possibly down the road as a career? Building on those kind of soft skills or those kind of important baseline things is in ninth and 10th grade. Again, more study skills, work habits, take notes, ask for help. Depending on the school they go to, they may have different options for curriculum, but this is a time to really try to see how hard they can push themselves within reason to take rigorous coursework, again, while maintaining the proper balance. If they have an option to take electives, I think high school is a great time to try different uh, career courses, elective courses, again, depending on what you have available. And if you don't have those courses available at your school, see if there's a way you can explore them at a community park district course, a library course, an online course. There's so many different options. Because you don't want your student to say, yep, I think I want to be an accountant, and have no experience taking accounting all 4 years of high school, and then pick a college for accounting, and they take accounting 101 and they're like, ugh, this is accounting. And now you've spent all this time and money and energy that could have been used for something else, not having explored it beforehand. And then again, starting to get involved in those extracurricular activities, school or elsewhere. And we'll talk about elsewhere here in a second. And remembering that it has to be, or it should be, quality over quantity. This is a popular um, question that sometimes I get from parents about what are colleges looking for. They're looking for, do they have to be in a sport and an academic club and a social club? And like, do they have to do all of these things? And the answer is no. They need to find something that they are passionate about, committed to. That could be one thing all year. It could be a couple things depending on the year. But it's something that shows the college that they are committed, they are dedicated, that it takes up their time, in a reasonable amount, and still finds, that balance. And it does not have to be at their school, and which I think is very important. Uh, and then in grades 11 and 12, they can really start researching, especially grade 11, start researching and finalizing their plans for their life after high school. And if that's going to be college, start visiting campuses and researching that information. And for parents, for sure by 11th grade, start discussing what expectations you have for them. So do they have to live at home and commute? Do they need to be a certain distance? Is there a certain major? They want to major in cartooning and you want them to major in finance. Like have that conversation early, and be on the same page so that there's not, fights and stuff, later. And then budget, of course. I know it's really hard to talk to your students about your kids about money, how much money you have or don't have for college. But the sooner you have that conversation and set those expectations, the better. And we'll talk more about the cost and price of college at that January one. But I just want to state, and I'll probably say it more than once tonight, from an Orthodox perspective and what I see outside with other families that work at my school, and I'm trying to not make this sound again judgmental, so please forgive me if it does, but the insistence on certain name brand schools or certain things that cost tons of money just to say our kids go to those schools, to be able to wear the sweatshirt or put the bumper sticker on, is not only poor financial decision often, but it could really be a matter of pride. You're so prideful that you need to boast of your children, even if it's a poor, financial or even other academic or social fit. So I really caution parents on removing your sense of pride from the equation and make sure it's the right fit for your student. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So this was a popular quote or kind of image that had been floating around social media the last few weeks. So I apologize, I don't know like where the origin of it was, but it really, really hit home when I first saw it. And for parents, especially as a parent, when church becomes optional to you, it will become unnecessary to our children. And plays a huge role and becomes more and more of an issue as they become teenagers and go into high school. And so if you allow me really quick, just to share a quick story, not because I'm such a great parent either, like I said, please don't think that, but I think I made the right decision. But even so, maybe you'll pray for me to overcome the other sense of angst I still have on it. So my oldest son, who's 14 in 8th grade, he just turned 14 last Sunday, October 6th. And unfortunately, on the same day, his great grandmother in Michigan passed away, who is my wife's paternal grandmother, who was instrumental in keeping her in the faith, taking her to church every Sunday morning. She wouldn't be Orthodox probably if it wasn't for this grandmother. Our whole lives would be totally different. So anyways, so it was obviously a very, sad day. And it happened to be on his 14th birthday, which was also, a bummer, but he was old enough to not really care that much. But the thing that really hurt me the most was that the funeral happened to be on the day of his cross-country sectional meet, the one that he either as a team or himself individually could qualify for the state meet. He had been on the team. This was his 4th year, his last year in middle school. I ran cross-country in college, so it's a huge sport in my life too. And the decision had to be made. Does he go to the funeral in Michigan for, pray for her soul and do all this? Or does he, somehow skip that and go to this meet because it's his last chance? His teammates are counting on him. What do you do? And it was such a tough, the decision was easy. He's going to the funeral. That's first and foremost had to be most important. And it's a hard thing, but it still hurts me that he missed this opportunity because his team didn't make it to state without him. If they had, he could have run. And so that's just kind of how it is. But it was a great opportunity to show this. Sorry for the long-winded way to get here, but I thought it was a good opportunity to show that it couldn't be optional. It had to be necessary for him to know this and for our whole family to know this, because the most popular one is Sundays, right? Yeah, Sundays we'll go, but all these other things are still part of living our faith and setting that foundation. And so if we would have said the funeral's optional, if you can figure it out, then what else will become optional? And so that leads me to all grades should have to focus, and as parents, we have to focus on cultivating their spiritual life and their spiritual growth. And one of the biggest things that I hope to get out of this platform that in these conversations is that by doing this, this is a win, at least a win-win, if not a win-win-win for your kid. So what I mean by that? Number one, it's a win for their soul. And I added this icon of the sower because it was the gospel reading this past Sunday. So I was sitting there listening to the gospel and thinking of listening to the sermon, and all I could think about was this is the perfect analogy for this age group. We have to help them cultivate that good soil, because when they go, if not in middle school, if not in high school, most likely college or even beyond that, there's going to be the birds eating the seed and the thorns choking and the boots stomping on it. And we have to help them cultivate that good soil so that that seed, that word of God, can grow strong no matter what environment they end up. And how do we help do that, besides, of course, in our homes, is by having them participate in the life of the church. So for sure, attending those church services regularly and also participating in the sacraments, but also being involved with and prioritize church activities. So there are so many. This is just a short list, and I apologize, depending on what it's called in your jurisdiction. In Greek, the teen group is called Goya, and I know in the Antiochian it's called Soyo. Whatever your youth ministry is, all of these things are ways, number one, that help strengthen your kid's soul. They're in the church, they're participating in church activities with other Orthodox students. So that's number one, good for their soul. So that's a win. It's usually, most of these things are fun. So that's also a win. And last but not least, these things can go on, especially in high school, their applications, your college applications, your scholarship applications. You when parents say, "Oh, we're too busy to go to this because they're doing all this stuff at college," like, this is it. This is, they can put Goya president, altar boy captain, Sunday school teacher, winter retreat counselor, summer school, summer Bible vacation school, volunteer. Like, all of these things can be used to help strengthen their applications for colleges, for internships, for jobs. Um, and so on and so forth. And so it's, again, that's the third win. It's good for their soul, it's fun, and it's good, helps them even stand out from all the other applicants. So again, I work at a school that each year the senior class is about 500 students. They all take the same courses, roughly the same test scores. What's going to make them stand out from all the other people in this application pool? It's some of these unique things that really show a different side of them. And pretty much every college I could think of, why wouldn't you want somebody like this on your campus? Somebody whose life outside the classroom, involves such a positive thing. So whenever people say, yeah, there's just no time because we have these classes and they got to be in all these other activities for college, like, this can be, for college too. So if they're used to joining those things from middle school, early on in high school, it won't be something that they want to abandon, junior, senior year. They'll be at the leadership point and be running these things, and that's going to look so much better as well and be good for their soul. So along with that, it's important during this time to stay spiritually healthy in connection to, things that they do at school. So the first thing is getting involved, as I mentioned. And not only is it important for all the reasons we said, but typically when kids are like bored and have nothing to do, they get in trouble. They, they waste time on screens, or they run around with their friends. And so keeping busy is also, is good for them to stay out of trouble. And it should include a lot of those church activities we just said. It also helps build time management skills, one of those skills I said that can be focused on during this time, because when you have to go from school to soccer practice, to youth group, to church, to whatever, you have less time built in to your work. So I have to do it during this time. And most, pretty much every study I've ever seen shows that people who are involved or in sports or something, are busy, have better grades and have better time management skills because they have to, versus, I have all night, I'll just get to it whenever, and then they don't. And again, these involvements can look great on these applications. Another important thing during this time to stay spiritually healthy is developing that social group. And so, of course, that's why joining activities at church, are so important. But depending on where you go to school, and so some of this presentation I had done to eighth graders at the Orthodox school at my church, who were all going to be going at the time. And when I first started doing it, there was no Orthodox high school in the Chicago area. Now there is. But it wasn't an option before. So we talked a lot about, you're leaving these church friends, these Orthodox friends you've gone to school with all these years, and now you're going to be going somewhere else. And so, inviting them to your school events is a great way, and vice versa. But One thing I ask the seniors at my high school often every year is how many of you are friends with the people that you started high school with? And most of them aren't friends with the same people because your values change. And so it's important for our students to know, especially those of you who have eighth graders, who are going to be going to high school next year, that even if they're going to a new school, a new setting, um, it's not an Orthodox setting, they can find people who share their values. It's really important to find those people at your school you're at. And again, you can always incorporate your church friends in school events and vice versa. So when I was in high school, I went to homecomings and proms and vice versa with people from my church. And they became friends with some of my church friends, my school friends, and vice versa. And so we kind of mixed those two groups together to make sure that we were all hanging out with, good people. And for parents, of course, it's also important to try to encourage your kids and find out, and I know you know this, like who are they hanging out with and what are those students, those kids' rules and what are their parents' rules? Who are their parents, first of all, and setting those boundaries. But one thing that's really tough is when a kid's social group, they don't have the same rules that your kid does. So if I tell my kid, you have to be home by 10 p.m. and no R-rated movies, let's just say, and whatever, and all their friends, can stay out till 1 a.m. and see, all right, like that's not going to be a good friendship. They're always going to be missing out. They're always going to be feeling like, what am I doing here? And so having everybody on the same page with the rules, curfew, all that expectations, if you have your kids in that social group where everything's the same, and parents, if everyone's on the same page too, like you all know, like we all follow the same thing. You can't tell me that that Johnny's mom lets him stay out till 1. I talked to Johnny's mom. He cannot stay out till 1. No pulling that on us. That's obviously important too. And then again, this was part of talking to those eighth graders who are going on to, public school, especially, but you can practice your faith. They can practice their faith anywhere, public school, non-Orthodox school. And especially if they do go to a public school, whether it's middle school, high school, or when they get to college, that they can I really can't stress enough that they can advocate for themselves. And so I don't know if anyone on here has been following like my Facebook page, but on Rosh Hashanah a couple of weeks ago, I was home from work and I put a post that got a lot of positive, connections about advocating for yourself because clearly the Jewish community advocated in my district enough to have the day off. You see this a lot during Ramadan with Muslim students. We always get an email saying, they're not eating during the day, they're not drinking during the day, so please excuse them from gym. Please, be mindful that they may be tired to do their homework. And so you can do the same thing and advocate for, during Holy Week, during fasting periods, because especially, and this could be different at depending on the public school area that you live in, but I know at least around where I am, public schools and public school administration is very, concerned about coming off as bigoted or prejudiced or something. And so if they try to, deny within reason some of these requests or these things, it could come back and look really bad on them. So they may even be extra willing. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to advocate. Don't be afraid to tell your students to advocate, for themselves. Especially in a public school, you might think that, oh, it's public school, like they're not going to, allow them to skip this homework because of pre-sanctified tonight, but they might. It doesn't hurt to ask. All right. Is there some, again, very basic things that you probably already know, but I just like to stress for academic success tips that grades are the number one thing that colleges look for, including from freshman year. So you want to set that expectation that they're doing really well in their classes first and foremost. Knowing the school that they go to, their GPA scale. So for example, the high school my kids will go to have a different GPA, grade point average, for pluses and minuses, which can vary a lot versus just a straight A, B, C. So it's important to kind of know that because strong grades can save you money down the line for college. The higher the grade point average, oftentimes the more merit-based scholarships your kid can get, the more money you can save on college, the more you can spend that on other things like the poor or your church or other important things. So if you could think of it that way, again, it can just save you money by having them get as strong grades as possible. I mentioned before that rigor is also important. So consider it in each subject, again, depending on what courses you have available to you at the school you have. Um, it's important to challenge themselves, but also to find balance. So again, if they feel like, okay, I need to take an advanced placement test and or advanced placement class, 5 AP classes, like 7 hours of homework a night, they're not going to have time for youth group or for going to church or things like that. And so that's not what we want either. We want to find balance. And colleges want to see some balance too. They don't want to see students who are just so overwhelmed with academics that they're burned out. Um, Other tips for success that can start again from middle school is taking those notes, participating, being organized, those good time management skills, study habits, and asking for help, those soft skills that are super important. President, I mentioned earlier that I teach a class called College Success Seminar at a community college. Unfortunately, these are the topics that are in that class at the college level because those skills are so lacking that the colleges feel that they have to. This is a mandated class for everyone at the school seeking some kind of degree or certificate, that we have to cover those as college students because people are not coming in with those skills as they should be from high school, and so they'll be even so much better off if they have those skills. And then testing is another area when they get up to high school, SAT, ACT, or the CLT, may be required for high schools. So I was just talking with the rep from University of South Florida today at my school. Florida requires tests for admission, and the CLT, maybe some you might be aware is more for like usually homeschool students, I think, or non-public school students might take that. It's accepted just as much in the Florida schools as ACT and SAT. So whatever you take, you want to obviously take it seriously and prep for it. But I also see a lot of people going overboard with the test prep, spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on private tutoring just to get their score up a few points when it doesn't necessarily change that much of a difference, and where there's about 2,000 colleges in the United States that don't even require a test score. Now, the Florida schools aren't part of those in some other states, but there are options out there. So it's important to know like what your state, what the rules are for the state, and maybe we'll talk more about this in January, but what kind of their plans are to kind of determine your testing plan. Another important part during this time is to stay, of course, physically healthy, as we know that our bodies are the temple of God, so we want to stay physically healthy. So one is as kids get older with their diet and exercise, if they're in classes a lot or have a lot of homework in front of a screen, they might be sitting a lot all day. And we want them to get up and move and get that physical exercise. Food is also can change a lot during this time. So, depending again on if you're at home, then you have, all the healthy options in your kitchen available. But if you're going somewhere that has cafeteria or vending machines, as they get older, there are more options, and more of it usually is both expensive and a waste of money and junk food. So, at my kids, they go to a very small school, they have limited options, but they'll buy like a Rice Krispie treat for like $1.50. And I was like, why did you spend that money on that? Like we could have bought them for cheaper, or you don't need that in the middle of the day. And I know at the high school I work at, you could go in the cafeteria and get pizza and fries like every meal, or go off site. When I think back to my senior year of high school going off campus, every Wednesday and Friday was a big bag of French fries. And then the other days was like, burgers or something. Like, boy, did I waste money and eat terrible. What was I thinking? But nobody was, somebody should have stopped me, but they didn't. So if you can stop your kids, definitely do that. Another thing that can happen is we have students at my school who are there from 7:30 a.m. till 7:30 p.m. because they're in sports or play practice or music, and so there's no way those kids are eating 3 balanced meals a day. And so they're either spending money to go to restaurants or they're bringing all kinds of snacks. And so if there's a way that you can pack ahead for your kids or bring them a meal somehow, or keep that in mind, because oftentimes that makes them tired, and that leads to an increase in caffeine. The number of kids I see at my school drinking Starbucks every day is unreal, or Dunkin' Donuts coffee, which is not good for growing, kids for sure. And my son in middle school says that his friends will go to get Starbucks too, so that's even younger and even worse, right? That leads to sleep too. So busy schedule, less time for sleep, and less sleep equals being tired, which means then are you skipping something, right? I think we've all probably come home after a long day and said, too tired for prayers. I'm too tired to go to church tonight. I'm too tired to go to youth group. All those things we just said were so important, but we're just physically exhausted. And we have to make that choice. And so that's when those things then start becoming optional and the whole cycle starts to happen. So sleep, encouraging your kids to sleep earlier, and that oftentimes is putting those screens away earlier, giving themselves a break so that they can decompress before bedtime. All right. Some other general, tips for success, career exploration. There's a lot of free resources online that you can use to do some career interest inventories. A lot of, depending on where you live, of course, I guess I live in, a huge metropolitan area of Chicago, so there's lots of opportunities. So I know maybe wherever you are may not be, but especially with online options, look for different options for career nights that maybe a hospital is offering, a community college is offering, different, other organizations, trade associations, chambers of commerce, where you can bring your kids and they can learn about different careers. Again, another way that you can help your student see if a career is going to be a good fit for them down the line. And kids, it's hard, you don't want to expect this 15, 16, 17-year-old to decide what they're going to do the rest of their life. Like, I never thought I'd be doing this when I was that age. There was no idea. But still, if you can help them, again, to save money, not going to college for a degree that they aren't going to use or whatever, job shadows and internships and things like that. And so a great place to find people to shadow is at your church. And so we call it coffee hour. I don't know what other people call it. After church, you go down to the hall or wherever, and there's coffee and sweets maybe. And there's a bunch of people there that you trust, hopefully, and you might be your friends. And you know that your kids are going to be safe there, and say, hey, you're a lawyer. Can you bring my, son to your law office one day and see what it's like? So that's a great way to find people in a variety, again, depending on the size of your parish. It's a place to start. And again, I talked about taking different elective courses, and even getting part-time jobs can help your kid really understand kind of, some options in the career areas. There's a lot of free online tools as well for college exploration. Visiting campuses is really important. You can start attending college fairs, I would say even as early as 10th grade, visiting college campuses, 9th, 10th grade, just to kind of get an idea of what's out there and what might be a good fit for your student. And if you are somebody who's goes to school online or at home school, or even a private school, many of the public school events are going to be open to the public. So for example, my district is hosting a big event this Thursday night, a post-secondary planning night. It's advertised all over our websites and things like that. We don't check, there's no RSVP. We don't check, your ID. Anybody could go to those. College fairs are usually national. There's national fairs all over. They're not checking to see where you're from. As long as you go there, you're fine. So there's lots of resources that are free and out there. I've presented at the public library before, which again is open to everyone. So utilize those resources in your area if you have them, as well. And then this is like boring, but email. Email is huge. Kids don't check email that often, but there's a lot of stuff that comes through email. So tell them to get used to checking email. You check your email, have your student reply when applicable, but help them get organized, because a lot of stuff comes through email and you don't want them to miss stuff, including church activities. So the priest at my church, who is in charge of the youth, he sends emails, he sends text reminders, depending on your stance and having your kids on social media. Like mine aren't, but I know they post a lot on social media too, to remind you about these things. So checking those things so you don't miss anything is important, and getting them used to it, as they get older as well. So this is a lot of information on this screen here. And this is really what the January presentation is about. So I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of kind of what to expect, or what to think about if you're, a middle school parent. Maybe the January one isn't going to be as relevant. And so just to kind of put this in your mind for the future. But when we talk about the college, especially search process, when I talk to my public school parents, we have the 5 Ps of the process. And for our Orthodox Christian friends, I've added the 6th one of prayer. So these are the things that your students should think through as they are planning for possible college, and creating that list, especially their junior year. You definitely want to start this by junior year. So the first thing is the student, your kid, should ask themselves, who am I? Do I want to go to college? And if so, why? Like, what do I hope to get out of it? If not, how are they going to use their talents God's given them? Otherwise, are they going to go to trade school? Are they going to go in the family business? Like, what are they going to do with these talents? And so another parable that I think really hits home with this is that parable of the talents. So really quickly, you probably remember the master gave 5 to one, 2 to one, and 1 to the other, and then he left and came back and went to collect. And the one with the 5 and the one with the 2 both doubled there. So God entrusted them with, God is of course the master, entrusted them with what he knew they could handle, and they trusted God that they could handle it. They trusted that they were given what they were able to, and they doubled it. And he wasn't any more pleased with the 5 one with as the 2, because he said both of them like did what they were supposed to do. He was not happy with the person who was given 1, because although he was given 1, the Lord knew he could handle the 1, and he didn't trust in the Lord, and he just buried it in the ground. Okay, so it's really important. I know that was quick, but like hopefully that made sense. We're all our kids are all given certain talents, and we as parents need to make sure that we recognize and help them recognize, do they have 5, do they have 2, and do they have 1? And if they have 1, that's fine. They can be hugely successful with that 1. We can't pretend that they were given 5 and try to like push them in certain directions. We have to help them realize what their talents are, and then take that to the next step of what that might look like for their college process. So that's where everyone should start. And most of the students and families I work with don't start with that. They start with what's a good college for business, or what's a good school for engineering, and that is not how this process should work at all. It starts with the student themselves. The second one is, who are they going to go to school with? And maybe they'll have grown up their whole life in a Orthodox environment or homeschool environment, and now they're looking to see like, okay, there may not be that option anymore. Who am I going to go to school with, and what are the different benefits and challenges of that? And so there's a lot more we can dive into that at the next session. The place, again, big school, small school, public, private, faith-based. Is it better to go to a non-Orthodox faith-based school than a public school? Maybe. Like, there's some pros and cons to that can be worked out. But for sure, we want to know, how far is it from an Orthodox church, to have that community, to have the ability to participate in the life of the church, the sacraments and all that. And does it have an active OCF group on campus? The program, of course, what they're going to study is important, but thinking it from, Orthodox perspective, is this career I'm going down ethical? Would I be helping others, or maybe would I be hurting others, is an important question to ask. Will this career keep me from church or spiritual life, or ever having a family? Like, will I be traveling around the world forever and never be home? Will I be selling products that go against what, our faith would say is good? So those are, things to kind of consider down the line. And probably a lot of teams aren't thinking about that. So that's where you as a parent, may want to step in and say, hey, like, have you thought, like, you say you want to do this, but do you know that you might have to do X, Y, Z? Like, what do we think about that? The price I kind of alluded to before, like, is there a way that you can save money? And I don't tell parents how to spend or not spend their money. And I do feel like I come off judgmental when I talk about this, but I really do believe that a lot of parents will go into debt and spend money that they don't have just to either appease their kid or to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And it's just, it doesn't end well down the road. And so really keep in mind for your student, what is a reasonable amount of money we have, and is there a way that we can, um, you know, save some money here and use it for other things. And that other things could be graduate school or, something else like more education down the line. Doesn't just have to be for other stuff, but keeping that within reason. And then again, lastly, prayer. Has your student prayed about it? Have they talked to their spiritual father about their plans? Um, how are they going to live their faith at their college? Will it grow or will it fade away? And those are important, again, things to really think about. So we'll dive deeper even into these in January if you are so interested. Um, if you by chance have somebody who is already heading to college in the fall, if there's any parents of seniors out there, you cannot let them leave if they're going away before you do these things. So of course, locate that nearest Orthodox church to campus. If you're typically are Greek Orthodox, you might only be looking for Greek Orthodox, but there could be others, around that are closer that you don't want to miss out on. If they're not going to have a car there and you're not sure how to get there, email or call the priest. I'll tell a great story about my wife at the January one, so stay tuned for that. Check also if they have an OCF chapter. So you can go to ocf.net/chapters to search by the college. And then most of them, it'll say the priest or spiritual advisor, and then the student leaders. And if you're going to go visit that school, you may want to reach out in advance and see, hey, can we meet with somebody from the OCF or the priest even, and get their perspective on what is it like to be an Orthodox Christian at this school. And so I went out to Clemson earlier in the year, and I wanted to ask some of these students this question. And so I went on this website, I emailed the person, I'm just this random guy from Chicago. And I was like, can you meet with me? And like, I want to ask you some questions. And he arranged several students to meet me like out at a park, and they told me all how they got into OCF and how they picked this. It was awesome. And so if they're going to do that, like for me, I'm sure they would meet with a family of prospective students and things like that. So definitely keep that in mind. Of course, pack the essentials for your student prayer book, Bible icon. You may all know this, but in case you don't, on Didaron, right, the holy bread, you cut it up small and toast it. It will last the whole semester. It won't mold. You just toast it into little pieces, put it in a bag, sandwich bag, or a sealed tight container, and they can have a little piece of holy bread and holy water, every day before they start their day on campus. And of course, holy oil, they could put that on themselves, every day before they go out into their classes, and be really prepared to fight any battles that might happen that day. And it's always good, as well, for them to have a calendar or something so they know, okay, today's a fast day, today's this day, so that they don't miss out on those things. This is a picture of the University of Illinois OCF. They used to have housing. Now they don't have housing, but they have still a house, the Nikah house, where they meet. And so if it's very rare, but if you can find a campus where the OCF has a dedicated meeting space for them, that would be even better. That'd be really awesome. So keep that in mind. Speaking of OCF, hopefully I'm allowed to share this because I have insider information. There's gonna be some really cool events are going around the country. Some dates to be determined. So I don't know. I haven't been checking if people have posted from anywhere, but for sure, if you live in Austin on January 25th, Dallas the 1st, Chicago, we're working on it, and then in Lent, Baltimore, and Atlanta. OCF, again, is a college campus ministry, but we want to get this message out to students and parents before they even get to college. So there's going to be some exciting college days events near you, and God willing, I will be physically at all these places as well, talking about a lot of this stuff. There'll be some student sessions, some parent sessions, run mostly by the OCF staff in those areas, with me kind of tagging along. But save the date, and if there's a high interest in a certain other area, like for the following school year, maybe reach out to OCF and see if they'll send a crew out by you. So that's really exciting to get the word out about OCF and about incorporating orthodoxy into their college decision. And as we mentioned, this is just a plug for that Thursday, January 30th. God willing, we'll still be able to do that on that date. So stay tuned. So I don't even know what time is. Oh, we're making pretty decent time. I hope leave some time for questions here. I just want to end with this quote because again, we know that this is a stressful time for us parents, for our kids. And so again, if we remember, we leave the past to the mercy of God. We leave the present to his love, and then most importantly, the future to his providence. If we keep Christ in our lives, we keep planting that seed in our kids. We have to make these tough decisions. We're diligent. We speak with our spiritual fathers, and we put our trust in the Lord. Like it will work out how God so decides it will, and that's the best I think that we can do. So. With that said, I'll leave this up here for a quick second, but then I can take this off so that we can take a look at the Q&As or anything else that Brisbane wants to talk about. So. All right. Yeah. So Brisbane, do you want me to just start? You want me to wait a second? Okay. We'll wait a second.
It was really weird. I got stuck. So, so I apologize. So thank you, Christopher, for this edifying. And it really was important. You really hit a lot of the information that's really important starting from middle school. And I think that that is key, that, you know, this isn't just a junior year thing, but it's something that our families work up to and our kids, and we're looking at those things. So we do have some questions. I want to thank you. That contact information is there, Monica. Thank you for mentioning it. Also, I put the websites of OCCC. If you scroll up, everyone, one and all, there's several websites that you can see there. But we do have some questions. So let me go first to the original questions here. Elizabeth Parker, you asked, how does St. Raphael School document high school credit for transcripts? Great question. And this is a question not just specifically to St. Raphael School, but really as homeschooling families, how do you document and how do you create transcripts for colleges? I'm going to drop a couple links in the chat box. And ultimately, as a homeschool, you are creating those documents for your students. Now, our college system has changed greatly since COVID. And so many of our colleges now do look at homeschool transcripts, do look at exams like CLT as something that they do accept and then allow students, give scholarships, etc. So the transcripts are actually at the home front. We, of course, are service providers along with a lot of online schools. Now, there are some online schools that are umbrella schools, right? That they do say, we'll give you this transcript. However, based upon my works, which will be 10 years with St. Raphael School in the homeschooling field since Father became a priest, these schools are open to receiving those that do have a homeschooling transcript. So it's not like it was before, that there had to be an accredited high school diploma per se, but each state does have different regulations. So it's important to check in with that state. And particularly, it's important to check in with the college that you're interested in and what they accept, right? So some colleges will accept CLT testing. Others will say, I want you to take the ACT or the SAT. So it's really important to check in with those. I didn't know if you wanted to add something to that, Christopher.
No, I think I mean you're the expert, on that for sure. But a lot of college websites do have specific instructions
Mhm,
for, homeschool students, or specific requirements that may be different. So you just got to kind of check college to college. And then if it's a public school, they in that
mhm,
state may have a different rules than a private school. But that's why I was really curious about like the CLT in Florida, because Florida
mhm.
was required. Like, I wanted to ask, is it really seen as equal, or are you just like saying that but you would really prefer the ACT, or and like, no, like
Yeah,
the test, we consider it equally. So that's, I think, good news if you're in Florida or
yes,
flying to Florida. I can't say the
yes.
same for every state. But what I did notice for Florida schools specifically is that many of them, the public schools, are starting to have the same score ranges
Mhm.
that you can find like the SAT and the ACT, so you can get an idea how your student, compares if they're falling within what we call the mid 50%. So half the students who were admitted had these scores, and so on. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would check. And I don't know if any of your students out there are potential college athletes, but the NCAA
Mhm.
has separate webinars
Yes.
for homeschool students to make sure that they're academically eligible. So you definitely
Yes.
want to like watch those if that's pertains to you.
Yes, I would concur with Mr. Chiakulas because there are some very fine points with the NCAA. And so looking at those fine points, but again, it comes down to the direction and kind of like what you said, Christopher, we have to kind of think about what direction we're going in, not necessarily knowing that that's the for sure direction, but to get information that way. So anytime you have questions about, what does a transcript look like? What can we do? Feel free to, of course, reach out to me. I'm more than happy. I can boast of our students, our homeschool students from St. Raphael School. Many have received um, numerous scholarships. Recently, one student, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars scholarships to various colleges. So being homeschooled is not an impediment. It falls in line with every other student. Next question was, I would love to hear any general advice you have for convert parents and children. My children were 6 and 8 when we became Orthodox, and I feel like we have a lot of catching up to do. We're also part of a small parish primarily made of converts. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Hopefully that might be one where I'd say definitely, reach out to your parish priest and see if, whatever pace, he might recommend that you kind of be on. But that's where I think getting involved, like for your kids at least, can be that win-win-win, right? So if there are activities. I know you said it's a small parish, but summer camps that maybe
mhm,
draw in people from all over. Many of them have scholarships. If price is an issue, that could be where they can meet others. They can see what it's like to see other people living the Orthodox faith. Um, and they can start learning more about, like learning more about their faith. And what's great about some of those summer camps, my kids went to Antiochian Village for the first time this summer. There's the counselors are college students and stuff. And so they can see like, hey, how do you live, Orthodox faith in college? So any kind of experiences where maybe they can be around other kids their age, learn from others, and then just kind of check with the priest and see like, what should they know at this point, and just try to live that faith every day so that when they go off to the next phase of their lives, it's just something that they've always done. Again, it doesn't have to be, you know, you don't have to follow the rules that like the monks and nuns follow on at their,
Mhm.
where they live. You just like whatever it is, it's a constant thing every day. So I don't know if that's the best answer, but that's kind of the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, I would concur with that. Just plugging in where you can. And especially in events like this, especially online events from organizations like OCC, St. Raphael School, we offer different types of events throughout the year. So those kind of things are really important, just, to be able to be with others that are like-minded. So I think that's really key as well. So again, those kind of things, if you're interested, you can always become a part of our listserv. I'll put our Raphael School in the chat box here. And you can join our listserv and be informed of everything that comes up, because we do have events for the whole family. Like this one, we have events for parents, but we also have events specifically for students, specifically family events that you can get connected even in an online format. All right, so another question, and I'm just going from, so if you do have questions, please make sure you go to the Q&A so we can make sure we get everyone. Um, Anastasia Millwood asks, do you have a career test you recommend to give ideas what direction to explore? There are too many choices online to know which one to pick. Great question.
So, Bridget, I don't think I have access for some reason. I can't see it to chat
Oh,
with everyone. So I sent you one that I like. It's called Career One Stop. So maybe if you can I don't know why I can't share to everybody.
can you do it now?
Yeah, here we go. Okay.
Okay,
So let's try this. So Career One Stop, it's a Department of Labor site. But what's just really great about it is you can there's different assessments, videos. It's all the most recent job data. So you can see, like, is the job field growing? What's the median income? You can break it down by state. So that's like a nice free one that's connected to legitimate data that you can do. So that's when I would start with. And that's just like, again, there's different assessments there as well. There's interest assessment, skills assessment, like a value, work values assessment. There's just lots of really great information on there, sponsored by the Department of Labor. So that's where I would start.
great. Yeah, great questions and answer. Any suggestions? Another question that came through. Any suggestions for high school email accounts, how to keep students safe mainly? What platforms can be used? And I know this question was asked in chat, but Christopher, anything that you want to chime in on?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm only familiar kind of with the like emails that like my students get, through our school district or whatever. But like for my kids, you can create a
Mm,
Gmail account that is really locked down until they're at least 13. So if like middle school kids where um you can, you have the access to it, it blocks a lot of things. So there is certain Gmail in that sense. When they get to be in high school, um, you know, hopefully they're responsible enough for like just a regular, email account where they can um, communicate with whoever. Um, but I'm sorry, I'm not really familiar with like any other like emails. Maybe some other people have some other ones, but I know for sure for Gmail, you can. So my son just turned 14, so like I got all these emails from Google that says, oh, you can still manage it, or he can take ownership. He's still connected on Family Link for like his phone, where you can, shut it down and do these things. And so that's the one I'm the most familiar with, and it's all free. So I know somebody mentioned
right.
it's expensive, Proton Mail, but it's extremely private. I'm not sure. I'm familiar with that, but
I would definitely say any of the big email carriers like Gmail, like Proton email, um, e- ultimately have that functionality. So I would just look into it and see as it becomes a bit difficult. And also, I would add in there, part of what you mentioned, Christopher, was training up, right? Saints, right? And so what do we do when we have, an email or spam or something that's inappropriate? We don't open it, we delete it, right? So those kind of skill sets, even starting from a middle school age and helping them grow to discern and navigate those situations are key as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Nicole Sauer said, how do you time testing in states with dual enrollment? Will something like the CLT hold weight or even matter if a student graduates with a high school diploma and AA simultaneously?
Yeah, so if a student is earning dual an associate's through dual credit, in most cases they're still not a college student. They're still a high school student, so they would still apply as a first-time student versus a transfer student. So if the first-time freshman admissions requirements still require the test, then they are going to want to see the test, despite the fact that they have so much college credit. They still may be considered a first-time freshman in using that application. If by some chance the school considers them a transfer student, then they probably wouldn't need that test anymore. But that's
Mhm.
usually pretty rare. Somebody who just graduated high school is still and only has dual credit through the college, even if it leads to an associate, is still going to be an incoming first year
Mhm.
freshman. And so all those admission requirements are going to be applicable for that. So,
Okay, great answer. What age would you recommend kids start going on job shadow events? You mentioned that earlier in the hour.
yeah. Some of it might have to do with the maturity level of your kid if you trust them out at, a job site with someone. One of my previous roles was doing job shadows at a high school. So I think by high school level for sure, um, it would be good. Um, freshman year for sure, but I think they become a little bit more impactful if the student has taken some courses in those areas, like so that they can see it in practice. So again, if they happen to take an accounting 101 class, now you could see how it's being used. If they took a intro to law, they could see it in practice. But again, I think it depends on how young is the person willing to take, and if your child is mature enough to go there for that
Mm,
time and be in a workplace and not, be bored or doing whatever. But yeah, for sure by high school, if they have an opportunity to do so, it doesn't have to be like an all day thing. It could just be like a short one. And that's where maybe instead of the full job shadow, just a couple questions, like, hey, what do you do? What do you do at your job? Like, how did you get there? Just a few quick questions before you actually, shadow could answer a lot too.
yeah, and I love that you mentioned the coffee hour, right? So you have your lawyers, your doctors, your teachers, your guidance counselors, your garbage man collectors. You have all the people there. So, it could be as simple as, let's just talk about this and, see what the interest is and then go to that. A shadow. So that's very good question. For I think it was Evangelia. I am putting those websites, as we mentioned, again for everyone. While you're here, Evangelia had the question about her son, whether it was best to be on an IEP versus 504B when it comes to navigating college and what would be better as far as advocating for him for services. I know someone else in the chat also mentioned, Elizabeth said, that a 504 would helped her, and maybe that would be better. Do you have any experience with that, Christopher, and what you would say?
So sorry, Magalia, are you asking in what's what to do or what's better for college purposes or when they get to college or what's better in high school?
She
Um,
specifically is asking for college.
okay. So when it comes to college, the law changes. So there's no more IEPs or 504 plans. Instead of falling under the Education Act, students fall under the American with Disabilities Act. So um, students have much more responsibility put on them to go to that college's office of students with disabilities or whatever they may call it, and again advocate for what they need. They can definitely bring IEPs and
Mm-hmm.
504s,
Right.
but the things that students get with IEPs in high school, such as maybe a smaller class, a test read to them, um, uh, like less questions on a test, things like that. Those don't happen in college. The accommodations that students get in college are more similar to things that you would see in a 504, with like separate testing space, extended time on tests. So all the work and the tests are going to be the same. You just might be able to do it, differently, have notes taken for you or things like that. So the accommodations in college mirror more of a 504 than an IEP. Um, it helps whether you have so I would say whatever's best for the student in high school, that's what they should have to help them complete
Mm-hmm.
high school. And then whatever one they have, they'll take that with them as a guide
Mm-hmm.
to the offices at the college, and then those people will help the student figure out what is possible and can't possible. And there are some colleges that are more known. I don't know if I have a list with me like on the spot here, but that are more known for um, helping students with disabilities, for sure. And depending on it, they may have certain special programs. Um, would they do additional testing? That I would venture to say no, because that would be something that you would be responsible
Mm-hmm.
for on your own. Again, there's only a few. The list of accommodations in college is quite a bit shorter, because it's not required. It's a different law, and that's followed. Most likely they would have you refer out to someone else, and then you could bring that information back, but
Mm-hmm.
you can only be able to do so much. So I would definitely talk in advance before the
Mm-hmm.
student enrolls in the school. Um, to see what they can do. If he's a freshman in high school now, um, you would definitely want to figure out again what would be the best. So I don't know if what environment your child is in, but if it's a public school, definitely request um, a IEP review, and see what they come up with for that from now for sure.
Yeah, I would concur with that. We recently have a couple students that fall under this category. I'm also the manager of the Center for Students with Learning Differences in Spole Academy, which is St. Raphael School is a school within a school of the academy. And so we have a couple students that fall under this category. They're heading off to college. And definitely when you fill out those applications, you can list, and it does ask you there to list a 504B or IEP, but those things are used in order to help the student. And like what Mr. Chiakulas said, um, they they use them as a springboard, but then they fall under a different category when they become adults. And so then it kind of changes.
Yeah, so I would just say, especially since he's a freshman in high school, I would really focus now on making sure he has the right
Hmm.
thing right
Right,
now. The stuff in college will kind of play out as is, but
right.
now if he's got a lot of time, figure out what he really needs currently, and the rest will kind of work itself out later.
Yep. Great. Michelle Mathis, wondering about AP or CLEP tests for high school students. Is one better preferred by colleges?
So the AP, or if you get credit by AP exam versus credit through a CLEP exam, that's more on the credit that you're going to get when you enroll in the school, and usually those things aren't even looked at as part of the application or admission process. What they'll look for in the most students take the AP class, so that will be a class on your transcript, and they will look at how you did in the course, and if you did well on the exam, you could put it on there. But in most cases, it's more about the class than the test itself. a CLEP test, and again, if you are somebody who's learning on their own, homeschooling, doing whatever, then you might take CLEP tests just because you've covered the material. But just for those of you, if you're not aware what a CLEP test is basically this subject somehow, and so you're taking a test to prove that you know it. And so you would have to have most likely studied that like topic enough. I don't know if colleges are, they're not really looking at that for admission purposes. It would come into play more, what credit are they giving the student when they get to the college? And then you can always check on the college's website how they give credit for both AP exams, CLEP tests, and dual credit through transfer guides as well. So hopefully that answered the question.
All right. Any final questions? Please put them in the Q&A. I did have a follow-up question. The dynamic between or the age, there's a lot of time between an eighth grader to a senior in college, and lots can happen in that space of time. So if you had to highlight 3 things that can be consistently done in that total space of time that would have the biggest impact, what would you suggest those 3 things are? I know you gave us lots of lists and
Yeah.
based upon different ages, but I'm talking now throughout that age group. What would you suggest?
Yeah, so if we kind of mix both the academic and the spiritual, of course, number one, just be active in the church life. There are opportunities for all those ages, from junior Goya, junior Soyos, different things, camps, retreats, Sunday school involvement. There's several great even programs for students transitioning from high school to college, with Crossroads and various other.
Hmm,
The village, Antiochian Village has one. I forget what it's called, and I know there's a various different ones. So just always find something to be involved in. There's definitely a church, you know, whether it's the services and just the services, the liturgical life, or the youth group life would definitely be one. I think another one to always be doing is to be a self-advocate, to help your students learn to be self-advocates, whether it's when they need help on a an assignment, whether it's, like I said, to advocate because there's church, to be used to really speaking up and getting that support you need. So many other groups and people have no problem, um, you know, pushing for different things and different changes. Why not, why not
right.
us Orthodox? Um, and I guess the third would just be pray. Pray about everything. Pray for your kids.
Yeah. Yes.
Encourage them to learn a prayer life. There's, we have quotes by a lot of the saints that say, especially when they get older, it's more about talk to God more than you talk to your kids. So just constantly be praying for them. And it's like one of those last quotes said, just leave the providence to God, put it in his hands. Um, and um, and yeah, that can't go wrong if you're constantly praying. So
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Christopher. And I did put the parents' prayer of Saint Porphyrios in the chat. Lord Jesus Christ, give your light to my children. I entrust them to you. You gave them to me, but I am weak and unable to guide them. So please illuminate them. And that's kind of what it reminded me of what you said. Mr. Chiakulas, thank you so much for being with us. As he has said, he's going to be with us again January 30th. He's going to offer a session for parents and students together, a joint session. And so we'll send out information. For those of you that are wondering if a video will be sent out, yes, anyone that was registered, a video will be sent out. So you will receive that. In addition, Mr. Chiakulas will receive your emails, all of you that registered, so that if he would like to send you updates or information, he can do that as well. So you all will be in contact with one another. If you do have any further questions, comments, concerns, of course, you can reach out to Christopher directly. And you can also reach out to me. I will put my email address right in the chat. make sure I spell everything. And we look forward to seeing you again in January. Anything you would like to close with, Christopher?
No, thank you so much. Some great questions. And just keep the faith, keep praying. I know it's a lot to go through. I'm living it myself, and so we'll all do it together with God's help. Thank you so much, Presbytera. This was great. And I hope it was helpful for everyone out there. And yeah, have a great night, everyone.
You too. Have a great night, everyone. Through the prayers of our Holy Fathers and Mothers, have mercy on us. Amen. Good night, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.